Let's talk about lobster. I did not expect that we would, but thanks to Donald Trump, that's what's on our plate today as a country. He tweeted yesterday, President Obama destroyed the lobster and fishing industry in Maine. Now it's back, bigger and better than anyone ever thought possible. Enjoy your lobstering and fishing. You could just write lobstering. We get what you mean with the lobstering. We don't think, oh, dress up like a lobster. No, you're catching lobster. We get what you don't need to put it in. Anyway, make lots of money. So why is he saying this? Why is the most powerful individual in the entire world talking about lobster? Well, it's because he was directing the Department of Agriculture to extend the more than $30 billion bailout fund that they put together as a sort of response to the trade war that Donald Trump launched us into for no reason, to now include the lobster industry rather than things like soybeans and all of that. And so they're going to be providing some of that to lobster fishermen, especially in Maine, who have been harmed by the trade war with China. Now, important context for this conversation. After Trump imposed tariffs on a wide range of Chinese products back in 2018, Beijing responded with a 25% levy on $34 billion worth of U.S. goods, which included American lobster. And as a result of that, Maine's lobster business found a ton of new work supplying China. That has harmed Maine lobsters. And Trump is saying, something about Obama. He ruined it. I'm good, though. What do you think about this?
I think that I'm probably still a little poor to afford lobster, but I remember what it tastes like, and that's nice.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of this story, you know what? It's just unfortunate that there are so many people out there who are impacted by Trump's ignorance. Because, like you said, he got us into this nonsense trade war and then creating this $30 billion bailout program to compensate these farmers and whatnot. And the fact is that people are also disgruntled about even this bailout because it seems he's really directing it to states that can help him. And Maine being a swing state,
Yeah.
they're going to get as much funding as they need while a lot of other states kind of sit and suffer. And it's all started from his kind of, ignorance and really just misdeeds, and everybody's going to suffer.
I'm curious. So I think you're probably right for the reason. I think the fact that a lot of the money had already gone to Midwest states that are going to be competitive, the fact that he's suddenly interested in Maine, like, has he said the word Maine since he became president before this? I don't know.
Does he know where Maine is?
Can he point it out on a map? I don't know. The only other potential explanation I can think of is because he is such a small, simple person in some ways. He had a trip to Maine and talked to some of these lobster fishermen not long ago. It was like less than a month ago, I think. And actually, are you familiar with Sarah Cooper, who does the Trump
Yes.
impersonations? So she had an amazing one of Trump on how to lobster. It's great. You should go watch it, everybody. But so he sat down with some of these lobster fishermen, and they were telling him about how bad it is. And so he started riffing about the EU and China. And he's the sort of person that, like, he would get so focused on that he would suddenly turn, like, the power and might of the U.S. government to dealing with it. So I don't know if it's the weird idiosyncrasies of him being such a weirdo, or likely you're right that it's a political calculation. But anyway, whatever it is, it's a needless expense. If he hadn't started the trade war, we wouldn't need to spend tens of billions of dollars bailing out so many different industries.
Exactly. And having Beijing responding with a 25% levy on, I think it was like $34 billion worth of US goods.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know. It's like, this is exactly who this man is. And it's why we are in trouble and why we are isolated and people aren't able to generate their income because, unfortunately, he stoked this mentality of a lot of Americans of the thought, we're a world power. We don't need anybody else. When no, it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We need everyone else and they need us. But unfortunately, now they're telling us, nah, we don't need you, son. And it's not a good look.
I want to get your opinion. So it's election year, obviously. Trump needs to win re-election. I would say going into 2020, it looked really good for him. But he's had so many of these, like, own goals, like continuing the trade war that's hurting the U.S. economy while trying to convince his base, this is me being strong. The coronavirus absolutely devastates us. He tries to get people to forget that it's actually happening. The economy is going to be hurt even more when the lockdowns have to come back because he didn't take it seriously. like, what do you think going into this general election about his strategy, these constant self-destructive policies? Do you think he's going to be able to surpass the effect of them and win re-election?
The thing is, I think that the loyal aspect of his base will forever be loyal. And there's nothing that he could do that will make those people not believe in him. I think you said, 37% approval rate. So that like base isn't going to go anywhere. For anyone else who is questioning or kind of teetering on the fence or whatnot, I think these next few months that he's going to continue to hurt himself, because unfortunately, as much as we were kind of like coming at Biden for being kind of quiet through a lot of this, it's probably for the best that Biden remained quiet.
It's looking like that.
Otherwise, he could just, only hurt himself as opposed to letting Trump do his own damage to his own self. So it's just, I think that Trump will continue to do damage, but he's always going to have that loyal base. But the thing is, I also feel like a lot of people will say that they don't back Trump, but then would go into a voting booth and go ahead and vote for him because they, prefer white supremacy more.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what to think, but I feel like I'm completely and totally traumatized by the last 4 years.
And you certainly don't sound like you're just coasting into the election anyway. And you might have answered this here. I'm curious, the 30%, 31, 37, whatever it is, if over 100,000 people dying from coronavirus doesn't get through to them, if him needlessly hurting the economy, including industries that are like overwhelmingly in red states, what is the core that it's resting on? Is it just the racism? Is it the racist dog whistles and the constant taking it back to that and the culture war stuff and all of that? Do you think that's sort of the foundation that it's resting on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People don't realize how powerful that is because, one of the important components of white supremacy is also the patriarchy and male supremacy. And so people don't realize, number one, the vast majority of us in this world, well, especially white America, has built their identity on this this kind of notion of superiority, whether it's explicit or implicit. You're used to being talked to a certain way. For instance, there is a wonderful company that I'm working with right now where I was hosting the videos, but now they brought me in as a consultant to go over, maybe racial elements and let them know. And so I'm having a very candid conversation with the older white male CEO, and he asked me for the truth, so I gave him the real, and he said, no one's ever spoken to me this way. And I wasn't insulting him in any form or fashion, but the fact that I was just completely and totally direct and candid, because there is this unfortunate aspect of our society where people have been shielded from a lot of the truth, and also they haven't necessarily been treated the way the rest of us are treated and getting the real. They've been coddled to a certain extent. And a lot of our population wants to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think that is extremely important for a number of people who really support his base, even if it will mean that you lose money, that you financially and economically suffer. And there has been a lot of research on this too, because the reality is that people need to feel like they're better than someone.
Yeah.
And and it doesn't just have to be race, it can be gender, it can be all sorts of things. But people would even take less money in their paycheck as long as it meant that they are still making more than the person next to them.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right.
It's unfortunate.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.